Imagine a world where the barrier to entry for generational wealth is not $1 million check, but a simple document known as IRS Form 4547 on March 30, Lanshanling Archelo. The United States Internal Revenue Service officially unveiled the guidelines for what the public has dubbed the Trump account, a tax-advantaged vehicle designed to fundamentally alter how American families perceive the concept of inheritance and long-term savings for their children. For decades, the average worker has been led to believe that the complex machinery of high finance and tax-sheltered growth was a luxury reserved for the elites behind the velvet ropes of Wall Street. Yet this new legislative shift promises to democratize the very tools once used by the top 1% to cement their legacies. The sudden emergence of this program has ignited a firestorm of curiosity and skepticism, leaving many to wonder if this is truly a path to liberation or just another layer of administrative complexity in an already overburdened financial system. We must confront the painful reality that most families are currently trapped in a cycle of paycheck to paycheck survival, watching their purchasing power evaporate under the relentless heat of inflation while they struggle to imagine a future where their children are not shackled by the same debts. By breaking the illusion that wealth is a static destination rather than a systematic process, we can begin to see Form 4547 not as a mere piece of paper, but as a potential catalyst for a monumental shift in the American economic landscape. Is it possible that a single administrative decision could provide the leverage needed to break the cycle of poverty? Or are we simply being lured into another psychological trap designed to keep us compliant within a system that values consumption over creation? The answer lies in understanding the profound difference between a simple savings account and strategic asset, a distinction that many will overlook until the window of opportunity has already closed behind them. What if the very system you thought was designed to keep you small has just handed you the key to a vault that has been locked for generations? What is actually silently controlling your wallet? And why does the mere act of saving feel like a constant uphill battle against your own instincts? To understand the significance of the newly announced Trump accounts, we must first dissect the intricate neurological architecture that dictates our financial behavior, specifically a phenomenon known as hyperbolic discounting. This cognitive bias compels us to overvalue immediate rewards while drastically devaluing benefits that occur in the distant future, creating a psychological barrier that makes a $50 dinner tonight feel more rewarding than a $50,000 nest egg 20 years from now. Our brains are essentially hardwired for survival in an environment of scarcity, seeking out the quick dopamine hit of a new purchase rather than the abstract security of long-term capital appreciation, which explains why so many Americans find themselves trapped in a cycle of consumption that leaves their bank accounts depleted at the end of every month. The modern economic landscape in the United States has been meticulously engineered to exploit these very vulnerabilities, with sophisticated marketing algorithms and seamless digital payment systems designed to bypass our rational filters and trigger impulsive spending. According to recent data from the Federal Reserve, the personal saving rate has frequently dipped to alarming levels as the cost of living outpaces wage growth. Yet the real culprit is often the invisible nudge of a society built on the debt-fueled acquisition of depreciating assets. This systemic flaw is precisely what the IRS aims to address with the introduction of Form 4547, recognizing that without a structured and incentivized framework, the average individual will almost always succumb to the gravity of immediate gratification. By framing the Trump account as a specialized vehicle for the next generation, the government is attempting to leverage our natural parental instincts to override the short-sightedness that typically sabotages our own retirement planning and wealth accumulation, We must also acknowledge the brutal reality of the hidden tax known as inflation, which silently erodes the value of traditional savings accounts and punishes those who play by the old rules of financial prudence. For decades, the traditional advice of putting money into a standard passbook savings account has been a recipe for wealth destruction, as the interest rates offered by major banking institutions rarely keep pace with the rising cost of healthcare, education, and housing. This creates an environment where the poor get poorer, not because they lack discipline, but because the very tools they use to save are fundamentally broken and designed to transfer purchasing power away from the many and toward the few. The release of Form 4547 represents a rare moment where the regulatory environment shifts in favor of the retail saver, offering a shield against the inflationary pressures that have historically decimated the middle class and prevented the transition from labor-based income to asset-based wealth. As we peel back the layers of this financial onion, it becomes clear that the struggle to build wealth is not merely a failure of willpower, but a conflict between ancient biology and a high-tech financial system that profits from your impatience. Those who succeed in the coming years will be the ones who recognize that the game is rigged against the impulsive, and that the only way to win is to opt in to a different set of rules entirely. But how exactly does the math of this new account perform when compared to the traditional methods we have been taught to trust? And what is the secret formula that allows a small monthly contribution to snowball into a life-changing fortune? What is the core mathematical formula that will fundamentally transform your financial trajectory through the use of Form 4547? And why is timing the most critical variable in this equation to grasp the sheer power of the Trump account? We must look beyond the political headlines and focus on the cold, hard numbers that drive long-term capital accumulation. Specifically, the elimination of the tax drag that typically hampers traditional investment accounts. When you invest in a standard brokerage account, every dividend paid and every capital gain realized is subject to a tax bite that can range from 15 to over 30% depending on your income bracket, effectively acting as a persistent anchor that slows down the momentum of your wealth. By utilizing the tax-exempt status of the Trump account starting in July 2026, a family can ensure that every single cent earned is immediately reinvested into the market, allowing the mathematical miracle of compound interest to function at its maximum theoretical efficiency without the interference of the Internal Revenue Service. Consider the dramatic divergence between two identical families who both decide to set aside just $50 per month for their child's future, starting from the moment the program goes live. Family A chooses a traditional high-yield savings account, which currently offers a nominal return that is frequently offset by the rising cost of goods, while Family B leverages Form 4547 to place those same funds into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund provided by institutions like Vanguard or Fidelity. Historically, the S&P 500 has delivered an average annual return of approximately 10% over long durations. And when this return is allowed to compound tax-free, the results are nothing short of staggering. Over a period of 21 years, the difference between these two strategies is not merely a few $1,000s, but a life-changing sum that can cover the entirety of a college education or serve as a substantial down payment on a first home, proving that the scale of your success is determined more by your tax strategy than by the size of your initial paycheck. The underlying mechanics of this wealth-building engine rely on reaching a critical tipping point where the annual growth of the account begins to exceed the total amount of contributions made during that year. This is the moment when the money truly begins to work for you, rather than you working for the money. creating a self-sustaining cycle of growth that becomes increasingly difficult to stop as the decades pass. By automating these contributions as soon as the registration window opens in mid-2026, you are essentially programming a financial machine to operate in the background of your life, harvesting the productivity of the world's largest corporations and funneling that value directly into your family's future. The math is undeniable, and the mechanism is now accessible to everyone. Yet, the greatest challenge remains the psychological shift required to prioritize a future gain over a present desire. If the numbers are so clear, why do so many people still struggle to cross the threshold into true financial independence? And what is the hidden difference in mindset that separates the winners from the observers in this new economic era? What is the real difference in the mindset of wealth between a typical salaried employee and a strategic financial architect? And why is this internal transformation more important than the balance in your bank account? The journey toward long-term prosperity begins with a radical departure from the scarcity mindset, which is a psychological state where an individual is so consumed by immediate financial pressures that they become effectively blind to the strategic opportunities surrounding them. When you are trapped in a cycle of reacting to every bill and emergency as it arises, your cognitive bandwidth is depleted, leaving no room for the foresight required to leverage tools like the newly released Form 4547 to transition into a mindset of abundance. One must first accept that true wealth is not measured by the expensive goods one can display to the world today, but by the number of days one can maintain their freedom in the future without being forced to trade their labor for wages. This shift from being a passive consumer of the present to an active designer of the future is the most difficult hurdle any family will face. Yet, it is also the most significant investment one can make in the pursuit of a lasting legacy. Opportunity cost is a fundamental economic principle that takes on a much more visceral and emotional meaning when applied to the context of a Trump account and the future of your children. Every time a household decides to upgrade to a slightly more luxurious vehicle or subscribe to a new suite of entertainment services, they are making a conscious but often unconscious decision to sacrifice the future compounding power of that capital. A strategic thinker recognizes that $100 diverted into a tax-advantaged account today is not just $100, but rather a fragment of a future year where their child might be able to pursue their dreams without the crushing burden of student loans or mortgage debt. By calculating the future value of every dollar spent on non-essential items through the lens of lost time and lost freedom, we begin to realize that the true price of our current lifestyle is often the very independence we claim to be striving for. The illusion of financial success is frequently maintained by a societal pressure to project an image of prosperity, leading many middle-class families to exhaust their resources on symbols of status while completely neglecting the foundation of their actual security. Choosing to drive a modest vehicle or live in a less prestigious neighborhood while maximizing contributions to a Trump account might appear to be a sign of struggle from an external perspective, but it is actually a profound declaration of personal power and economic foresight. This willingness to appear less successful in the eyes of neighbors while building a robust and tax-shielded asset base is the hallmark of a sophisticated mindset which prioritizes the substance of the balance sheet over the aesthetic of the driveway. When we stop seeking validation through our consumption and start seeking security through our investments, we reclaim the agency that the modern credit-based economy has tried so hard to take away from the average citizen since the mid-20th century. In the high-stakes financial environment of 2026, the introduction of Form 4547 serves as a psychological litmus test for your resilience and your ability to engage in the vital practice of delayed gratification. much like the famous marshmallow tests conducted in university settings. The choice to enroll in this new IRS program is a measure of whether you can resist the immediate dopamine hit of a purchase for the much larger and more enduring reward of a secure future for your descendants. Those who can master their impulses and automate their contributions will eventually find that the chronic stress of financial planning begins to dissipate, replaced by a quiet and steady confidence that comes from knowing the mathematical laws of the universe are finally aligned in their favor. This peace of mind is the ultimate luxury, far exceeding any designer brand or exotic vacation, because it represents the total alignment of your daily actions with your deepest values of family protection and generational progress. We must also deeply consider the concept of the equity of time, which suggests that the earlier one begins an investment journey, the less effort they must exert later in life to achieve the same or even superior results. By initiating a Trump account for a child in July 2026, you are essentially gifting them an extra 2 decades of compounding growth that most people do not even begin to access until they have entered the workforce in their mid-20s. This head start is an incredible structural advantage that cannot be bought with any amount of money later in life, as time remains the only resource that is strictly finite and non-renewable, regardless of your social status or annual income. Strategic families understand that by sacrificing a small and manageable portion of their current income today, they are effectively buying back thousands of hours of their children's future lives, granting them the freedom to choose a career based on passion rather than sheer survival. Historically, the most successful families in the United States have viewed the tax code as a defensive moat to protect their assets from the erosion of changing public policies. And the Form 4547 is simply the latest tool available for those who are savvy enough to recognize its value. By shifting your perspective from that of a passive taxpayer to that of a strategic beneficiary, you begin to see every new regulation and government incentive through the lens of how it can be leveraged to increase the collective net worth of your household. This proactive approach to financial literacy is what allows certain family lines to thrive through multiple economic cycles, while others vanish within a single generation, as the knowledge of how to navigate the legal and financial system is just as important as the ability to earn an income within it. Education on these tax-advantaged vehicles is the most powerful weapon available in the fight against generational poverty, providing a clear and documented path forward for those who are ready to stop playing a game where the rules always seem to change. Ultimately, the transition to a wealth mindset requires you to stop identifying as a consumer of products and start identifying as an owner of productive assets, which is a fundamental change in how you interact with the global economy. Every dollar that enters your tax-exempt account should be viewed as a tiny soldier that goes out into the marketplace to capture more value on your behalf, working 24 hours a day without ever needing a break or a retirement plan of its own. When you look at your portfolio and see that you own a piece of the world's most successful corporations through an S&P 500 index fund, you should feel a sense of participation in the collective progress of human innovation rather than a sense of resentment toward the corporate system. This shift in perspective is the true secret of the wealthy. And once you have internalized this reality, no market fluctuation or political shift can ever truly take away your ability to build a better life for those you love. Now that the theoretical foundation has been laid, the time for contemplation has ended, and the era of execution must begin to ensure your family is not left behind when the first contributions are officially processed in July of 2026. Your very first objective is to navigate to the official IRS website to access the newly released Form 4547 which serves as the master key for establishing these tax-advantaged Trump accounts for your children. You will need to have your social security numbers and the birth certificates of your beneficiaries ready to complete the registration process, ensuring that all data matches federal records to avoid any administrative delays that could postpone your start date. It is also highly advisable to consult the latest guidance from professional tax firms such as Alloy Silverstein to ensure you are maximizing every available credit associated with this new legislation. Think of this initial paperwork not as a bureaucratic burden, but as the digital deed to a future estate that you are building from the ground up, starting this very afternoon. Once the account is legally established, you must immediately implement the golden rule of personal finance by paying your future self and your children first through the power of automated recurring transfers from your primary checking account. Behavioral psychology teaches us that relying on willpower to save what is left at the end of the month is a failing strategy because humans are naturally prone to lifestyle creep. So you must create a system where a designated amount is moved into the Trump account before you even have a chance to perceive it as spendable income. By removing the friction of manual decision-making and treating this contribution as a non-negotiable expense like a utility bill, you are effectively hacking your own biology and ensuring that the growth of this asset becomes as inevitable as the rising of the sun. This set it and forget it mentality will eventually provide a profound sense of psychological relief as you watch the balance grow without having to sacrifice your current mental energy every single month. The final and perhaps most crucial step is to ensure that your contributions are not simply sitting in a stagnant, low-yield cash reserve, but are actively deployed into broad market index funds that track the long-term growth of the American economy. You should look for low-cost options provided by established institutions like Vanguard or Fidelity, specifically focusing on S&P 500 index funds or target date funds that automatically adjust their risk profile as your child nears adulthood and begins to require access to the capital. This strategic allocation ensures that you are capturing the full compounding power of the global marketplace while maintaining a diversified position that protects against the failure of any single corporation or sector. While it is important to monitor the account annually to ensure your goals remain aligned with your reality, you must resist the urge to overtrade or react to short-term market volatility. By following these 3 precise steps, you transform a simple government form into a living financial organism that will provide shelter and sustenance for your descendants for many decades to come. What is the hidden trap that could throw you back to the starting line just as you begin to see the light of financial freedom? And how can you safeguard the golden ticket you have worked so hard to secure? Even with the mathematical advantages of Form 4547 and the power of compounding on your side, the greatest threat to your family's future is not a market crash or a policy change, but the insidious phenomenon known as lifestyle inflation. As your income grows or as you see the balance of your Trump account begin to climb, there is a natural human tendency to raise your standard of living in equal proportion, effectively neutralizing the gains you have made over time. This hedonic treadmill keeps you running in place, convinced that you need a larger house, a more expensive car, and a constant stream of new luxuries just to maintain the same level of satisfaction you had when you were first starting out. To avoid this psychological snare, you must view your monthly contributions as a sacred obligation that exists completely outside of your daily spending habits, ensuring that your future self is never sacrificed on the altar of present-day vanity. Recall the image of the golden ticket we discussed at the very beginning of this journey. That simple piece of paper from the IRS that promised to bridge the gap between the struggling worker and the generational elite. That promise remains valid and powerful, but its ultimate fulfillment depends entirely on your ability to remain disciplined when the initial excitement of the March 2026 announcement inevitably begins to fade into the background noise of daily life. The Trump account is a highly efficient wealth-building engine, but an engine without a steady and consistent supply of fuel will eventually grind to a halt, leaving your children with nothing more than a fading memory of a missed opportunity. You must remember that the real barrier to entry for wealth was never just the lack of a tool like Form 4547, but the lack of a mindset that values long-term stability and security over short-term social signaling. By keeping your eyes fixed on the distant horizon and ignoring the seductive sirens of immediate consumption, you ensure that the illusion of scarcity is permanently replaced by the reality of abundance for your family line. The ultimate secret to success in this new era of American finance is to recognize that you are not just building a diversified portfolio, but you are curating a legacy of behavior that will be inherited by the next generation long before they ever touch a single dollar of the capital. If your children grow up seeing you treat the Trump account with reverence and consistency, they will naturally adopt the same stewardship when it becomes their turn to manage the assets you have so painstakingly accumulated for them. This transfer of wisdom and discipline is the most valuable dividend the account will ever pay, as money without a foundation of financial literacy is often lost just as quickly as it is found in the modern economy. Do not let the pursuit of a perfect or prestigious life today rob your descendants of a possible life of freedom tomorrow, but instead embrace the quiet dignity of building something that will outlast your own physical presence. The choice to act is yours, and the window to begin this historic transformation is standing wide open as we approach the milestone of July 2026. As we conclude this deep dive into the mechanics and psychology of the new IRS Form 4547. Remember that the most significant decisions are often the ones made in the quiet moments of reflection rather than the loud moments of public debate. You now possess the knowledge, the strategy, and the literal roadmap to change the destination of your family tree for centuries to come, provided you have the courage to start today and the discipline to stay the course. The machine of wealth is ready to be activated, and the only missing component is the individual who is willing to turn the key and remain steadfast through every economic storm that may come. This is your moment to reclaim your financial sovereignty and to prove that the spirit of American ingenuity and perseverance is still very much alive in the hearts of those who dare to plan for a better and more secure future. The journey from a simple tax form to a generational legacy is paved with the bricks of consistency and the mortar of patience. In the year 2026, the introduction of the Trump account serves as a reminder that the tools for freedom are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with the vision to claim them. May your discipline be your compass, and may your children's future be the North Star that guides you home to true prosperity